Hello everyone, I wanted to create a quick video today introducing you to RStudio and bringing data into RStudio. So this is the latest version of RStudio. Let's see, I think it's version 1.0.136, and some of the things you're going to see today when we bring in data the first time are going to be a little different than older versions, but it's just a look and feel a little bit different. It's not really implementation or anything that works a lot different than the older version. So this is the console in RStudio. Remember, this overlays directly over the top of the R statistical programming language. So you're really using sort of a quasi-graphical user interface when you're using RStudio. So everything that you're going to do inside of RStudio right here at the console actually translates directly to the R language compiler itself that it's sitting directly on top of. So there's another pane that will open up in just a bit where you can see your data. That'll happen right above this. You can also use this particular window to open R script files directly and interactively run individual lines of code if you'd like to. So some people like to do that way, but we'll get into that in a separate video. Over here on the left is your global environment. This is kind of where all your housekeeping is going to happen. This is where all your variables are going to be stored. Any types of data is going to be stored. Any lists, matrices, data frames, all those things. Functions are included in that list. Everything's going to show up here. So this window will be very important to everything that you do. You also have another tab for history. Any history that you've entered into the command console window will show up there as well, and we'll be using these particular buttons in a few minutes. Down here at the bottom are sort of your file management area, if you will. I've created a brand new project for this particular video, and anytime you do that, you have to set up your own workspace and your own project folder. I've already done that here. You can see I've made my own folder called Iris, and so I'm not gonna to start a new one, but it's important for you to use projects to do this, because anytime you're bringing data in or you're saving your workspace or anything like that, it's all stored in one particular folder. So then you can just take that folder and send it to someone, and they can replicate any issues you might be having on their own system without having to hunt for any of the dependent files that you might have used. So that you can see that here. This is the actual structure of your project folder itself. Obviously, I've only got one file in here already, and R actually made that for me. When I set up a new project, you can interact directly with files and folders in this particular area. You can also view plots of your data. You can view the packages that are installed with this particular version of RStudio, and anything that you install in addition to that on your machine comes here. You can also load and unload packages here by checking these boxes. You've got the general just help menu for RStudio here, and you've got a basic viewer pane for external resources. So so let's get some data into this, and let's take a look at what we're going to do. So we're going to be using just the regular Iris data set. If we for this particular exercise, if we look at this in Excel, this is what it looks like. There's many years ago a botanist set out to identify different types of iris flowers based on the measurements of their individual features. So you can see this particular data set has an ID for every individual observation, sepal length in centimeters, sepal width in centimeters, petal length in centimeters, and then petal width in centimeters, and then the individual species of the iris flower that relate to those individual features. I think you've got 3 different types of iris flowers that are in this particular data set. So so let's take a look at how to get this into RStudio. So I'm going to go and find this where I've saved it. It's just a regular CSV file. When I bring it in, RStudio, the latest version, is going to give us this really nice preview of it. Older versions have a much smaller preview, and it doesn't look like this, sort of in its own generic window. So, but keep in mind, it basically operates the same way. The main difference with the latest version of RStudio is now you can actually change data types right here in the preview. In previous versions of RStudio, you could not do that. I'm not going to do that in this particular viewport. I'm just going to bring it in just like it is. and then I'm going to convert this data type over to a factor, because we're going to actually do some machine learning on this in future videos. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that the old-fashioned way, so you can see how that's done. Something else you want to go ahead and do before you actually bring this in is make sure that you name your data frame. This is all going to go into a container called a data frame. Make sure you name that here, because if you've got a really long CSV file, maybe it's come from another source, and someone has sent that to you, it's going to take the default name of the CSV file there. And we don't want to skip any rows whatsoever, because we do have header rows on the very first one. We want those to come in just like they're supposed to. You can see if you turn that off, RStudio is going to give the header rows themselves sort of some default names, and we don't want to do that. We want the actual names that are in the data set itself. Make sure they don't have any spaces in them. Make sure that they don't start with any numbers or anything like that, and you'll be fine. I'll create a separate video later on feature naming conventions when we do something with pre-processing a little later in the series. So everything else can stay pretty much the same way. So you can see when I bring this in, here's this new pane that I was telling you about that's going to open up, and this is your data pane. So this is a data frame. So it looks just like the CSV file, and it's a container that works very similar to the same structure as a CSV file does. You can sort just like you can in a spreadsheet if you need to, and all the individual features will sort. What I like to do sort of to start out, and you notice here in the global environment now we have one data frame that's sitting here. It's got 150 instances or observations and 6 different variables. All features in a data set are called variables inside of RStudio. So let's take a look now at our data. So I'm just going to use str for structure, and then I'm going to start typing the name of my data frame, and RStudio will prompt me for an autocomplete. And the first thing I want to look at is, let's see what type of data RStudio brought this in as. And you could see this in the preview, but remember, in older versions of RStudio, you actually can't see this in the preview window, so that's why I'm going through this now. So the ID is an actual integer. We're probably going to get rid of that when we start doing some machine learning, because we really don't need it. You still have sepal length, the width, the petal length, and the petal width as numbers. That's fine. The species, though, came in as a character. And because we're going to do some classification exercises on this first, I'm actually going to convert that over to a factor, because a factor is a category, and factors can have different levels, different labels if you'd like, and characters cannot. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is convert this. And like I said, I'm going to do it sort of the old-fashioned way. So I'm going to say the iris data species, and I'm going to assign it to as.factor, and then I'm going to go ahead and do iris data species. And what this does is it takes the original iris data species, whatever data type it is, and it converts it to a factor. So I can do that. I'm going to press up twice. You can use the up arrow to repeat in RStudio. Now if I look at this, you can see now my species feature is an actual factor with 3 different levels, which means it's got 3 different categories or 3 different labels in this. And since species is eventually going to be my dependent variable for some of these future machine learning exercises we're going to go through in this particular series, that's exactly where I want it. So the last thing I actually want to do to sort of get ready for some of the machine learning videos is I want to do a summary on this data set, because it's really important for me to understand the discrete statistics that are involved with this particular data set, and summary does that. So you can see I've got my ID column, which I said we'll probably get rid of, has got a min of 1, it's got a max of 150, and that makes sense. There's 150 observations in this particular data set. Our sepal length starts out at 4.3 centimeters and then maxes out about 7.9. Sepal width is minimum is 2, maximum is 4. Petal width and length started out about 1. You can see petal width is much smaller than that at 0.1, and then they max out around 6.9 and 2.5 respectively. Now, The reason we do this and why is it important is because we can't have many of these features that have vast degrees of distribution. We may have to normalize this data, and because machine learning algorithms are going to be very sensitive to features that have vast distribution. So if one of these features is much higher ranked or has a much higher maximum value, a machine learning algorithm will typically migrate or bias toward that particular feature, and you don't want that because that's not an adequate representation of how the data is distributed. So and that's another reason we'll get rid of ID down the road, because ID is absolutely unique to every single observation, and a machine learning algorithm will pick that up, and we don't want that. We want an equally chance of learning all these features and how they correlate with each other and they impact the dependent variable. So that's it for this particular exercise and this video. I hope you have enjoyed this. This is a really quick introduction to RStudio, a really quick introduction to the Iris data set and how to get data into RStudio. In our next video, we'll be diving into data types and some basic statistics. So that'll take us into the very beginning of analytics and machine learning, which will come in the third and the fourth videos. So hope you like this video, and definitely subscribe to my channel. Leave me some comments in the channel. I'm always looking for ways to improve. So talk to you later. Bye-bye.